Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sleep and Relax ASMR. Today's episode, this is a little weekend ramble edition of the show. Basically, I'm just doing a totally, or I might say totally, but relatively unscripted episode where I kind of just discuss what's on my mind, what's been happening, what I've been dreaming of, what I've been thinking about, anything and everything in between. You know, a lot of times it goes off the rails. You know, there's no point to the episodes except to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep if that's your goal. Obviously, if you're busy, like right now, if you're at work and you just want to unwind during your lunch break, maybe you don't want to fall asleep, then don't fall asleep. But if you're in bed all tucked in, or perhaps on the couch and want to just fall asleep that way, then that's okay too, right? I think falling asleep on the couch is a very underrated method or tool for sleep. I think there was a time where I was falling asleep on the couch pretty much every day for, as strange as may sound to you, I think it was about maybe like 6 months, literally. Just I got into that habit of, watching TV before bed and, just kind of start dozing off a little bit. Then I put the TV on a timer, usually 60 minutes just in case. And I would just begin to close my eyes, and I just got used to it. So I even, would leave a little pillow out there and a little blanket, and it wasn't always the most comfortable thing, but I don't know, that's just how I am. Sometimes I get into these routines and these little quirks of mine, and once I start something, it's kind of hard for me to break it, which isn't saying much. That right there is the nature of routines. But I have a sister, and her and I are very similar in this regard, that when she gets into her routines and she kind of like develops a new habit, it's very difficult for her to break that. I remember living with her briefly as we were kind of transitioning from that like college to adulthood phase. So we lived together for I think about a year, maybe a little bit less. And the entire time that we lived together, so for, again, pretty close to a year, she would eat the same breakfast at the same time, in the same fashion, every single day. Didn't matter if it was Monday, didn't matter if it was Sunday, didn't matter if it was anything in between. Pretty much her routine at that time was wake up. I think she was waking up at like 9:30, something like that. Yeah, somewhere around there, that 9:30 range. I'd usually always be up having my coffee, or kind of like on my computer, starting to do some work from home, or just looking at emails. And she'd go to the kitchen, and it was always this routine, and I only picked up on it because she did it so frequently that it was impossible not to see it. And we have a very good relationship, so plenty of times she would get out of bed and get to the kitchen, and we would start to talk and just like hang out for a little bit sometimes. And so she would open the fridge, take out the carton of eggs. I'm telling you my breakfast routine. She would open the refrigerator, get out the cream cheese, place it in the exact same spot on the countertop every day. Go to the cabinet, cabinet, take out a medium size glass plate, place it next to the tub of cream cheese. She would then get the avocado that she had, ready for that day. And if it were not sliced already, she would have it and then basically save the other half for the following day. She would always unpeel, the avocado, or she would cut it in the avocado and place it on like a little mini plate almost, like a specific avocado plate for her. She would then take the bagel, slice a bagel, put in the oven, same settings every day, of course. And then she would take the bagel out, apply 2 knife-fuls of cream cheese. So really not too much, an ample amount. Not like a ridiculously tiny amount, not too much. But it was always in the same way, right? It's like she would start on one side of the bagel, kind of coat one side, then she would, with a second knifeful, coat the other side of the bagel, and then she would meticulously place her avocado. I'm talking about halves, right? So it was I think it was 2 knifeluls per half, right? And she would prepare it the same way. She would then, again, put the thing away. Then what she would do is she would put cream cheese away first, put the avocado away if there's a remaining half of avocado, and then grabs her plate, sits down in the exact same spot every single day. It was never like she would talk to me sometimes while standing up and we're just chatting. It's not like she would sit at the, we have a little bar stool for a little breakfast area maybe. We have a dining table with, a few seats. We had a couch, a couple couches that she could choose from. But no, it was always same seat every single day. And, she just eat it. And I'm sure if I timed her, it would be the exact same amount of time per day, So all this is just a long story, to say how, I guess, in that sense, my sister and I are similar. So I kind of poke fun at her for having, that habit that she had developed at that time. Which, by the way, that habit preceded, us living together again as, semi-adults, or I guess adults. That's such a weird phase, right, in life. It's the further I get away from college, the more I look back and I think about how interesting of a time it is, for many reasons, which, again, I know that this is not, a revelation. I'm not saying anything that's gonna, have you thinking twice or thinking differently, of course, but, I remember getting to college, and I was very fortunate that, during middle school and high school, really my only responsibility was to be a good student, to, be, a good student in multiple senses, right? Be a good student in the sense that you're getting good grades, be a good student that you're not causing trouble, be a part of your school communities and participate. I was very active in sports, and so obviously I was able to, really focus on that. So really the bar for my parents, the requirement for my parents was pretty much we're going to give you space and relative freedom, which they did. But basically it's you have to show us that, we can do so. And again, there was never any issues. I was really never, I was never grounded. I never got real trouble at school. So it was a pretty smooth experience overall. And again, the expectation was not for me to be, working on weekends or after school or, anything of that nature. So I guess for me, when I got to college, it was interesting how, again, I was a very fortunate, kid at that point. again, quasi-adult. And I met plenty of other, college students that had a similar experience, which basically it's like, your expectation is to be a good student and just kind of get through high school and all that. But then you have other kids, again, semi-adults, as I like to call them, because 18-year-olds now are, I think, firmly semi-adults in most cases. I think the only 18 and 19-year-olds that are like full-fledged functioning adults are, for the most part, those that have had circumstances that dictate that they have to be. Which kind of relates to my, what I was saying is, upon my reflection, it's amazing how 18, 19, I certainly felt like I knew it all. And again, I think I was a pretty responsible and mature 18 and 19-year-old. Again, I never got into any problems. Kind of like how I was at 18 or 19, I think I've maintained it into my current age. But it is not curious, more so interesting to think about how, again, I certainly viewed myself and thought of myself as an adult, but you had others that, heading into college were required, again, just by their circumstances, to be working, to be volunteering. Some of them had, traveled more than I had. Some of them had been high achievers in high school and done more things. So I think college is the first time, at least for me, that when I get there, you kind of realize like how little you actually know, but you don't realize it on the spot, because I thought that I knew a lot. But looking back, I'm like, damn, I really didn't know much. But I definitely, it's like this blissful ignorance. And, again, that's why I also consider it to be like me being a semi-adult. Yes, I was an adult in the sense that I was of legal age to not do much. I guess I couldn't drink at that point, but, 18 again is like that symbolic number of becoming an adult. But I didn't know anything. I'm not even sure how I got on this topic of being semi-adults. I guess talking about that transition, how when I was a semi-adult, having to live again with my sister, and she was in the same phase, right? She's a little bit younger than me. So basically the story there was I finished school, came back home for a certain amount of time to sort of figure out next steps. And it was good. The living situation was pretty good, I have to say. Same thing, I never had any issues. But again, it's pretty interesting to think about how, when I was in that, I was older, obviously, because this was just after college. So coming back at, I think I was 23. I think I was 23 because I had, no, I was definitely 22. Yeah, no, I was definitely 22. She must have been, I don't know, I guess 20 or 21, I don't remember. But she was pretty responsible for her age too. And now I'm just drawing a blank again. This is the beauty right here of the ASMR weekend rambles, is just kind of whatever comes to my head, I'm just spewing out there. And again, I'm not even sure where I'm supposed to transition to. I guess let's transition to some dream talk. I like to report on the type of dreams I have and the status of my dreams when I remember them, because I don't remember them all the time. So that's why plenty of episodes that, I'm doing a weekend ramble, I don't bring them up. So last night's dream, which interestingly enough, at this point, like I've commercialized the discussion and the topic of my dreams so much that when I have a very vivid dream, the first thing I think of when I wake up is write it down, note it, so in that way I can discuss it on the pod, which again I think is a very silly concept, but here we are. So, last night's dream, sort of a recurring theme for me, but just a different twist. So what I can remember is waking up in the dream and thinking I'm late for Thanksgiving dinner. So already kind of a strange start to the dream, right? Because I'm waking up and I guess waking up at like 5 in the afternoon, I would suppose, right? Because most Thanksgiving dinners, at least my Thanksgiving dinners, they start like 6:30, 7, 7:30, 8 at the latest, of course. So again, in the dream, I'm waking up and I look at my clock and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to be late for Thanksgiving dinner. And in the context of the dream, I'm living in my parents' house again. So I don't know how old I'm supposed to be in the dream, but I'm in my parents' home. And I know in the dream that my parents are still living there and my siblings. So when I wake up and I see no one's there, immediately I assume it's they left without me. Which goes to show you how much how well I get along, thankfully, with my family, that I didn't take it as like a personal insult. I just thought, no, they must have been busy. They must have had to have left early for different reasons. They're being very nice and letting me sleep in, but they didn't realize I was going to sleep in so late. So, of course, I'm in a panic. And I don't remember how I got ready, but I remember getting ready immediately. And by the way, this is like one of like my biggest points of anxiety, which shows you, what a first world problem it is and how fortunate I am. Is I get really anxious about the idea of not waking up in time to go do things. So that sort of thematic concept kind of rings true in my real world, right? Like in the real world, that's if something's at 8 in the morning, because I'm just not an early riser. That's the truth. I mean, I really have to force myself out of bed. And it's interesting because I'm not necessarily a night owl either. I just feel once I'm asleep, I just require a pretty good amount of sleep. So anyway, that topic of waking up and being late is something that happens frequently. One dream I remember very clearly as if I were dreaming it now, was waking up. This was when I was in high school. I remember waking up and I'm not going to say I remember waking up because I don't remember that, but I remember in the dream being at school and later that day having a soccer game, a football game. And I remember in the dream I was with 3 friends that were also on the team, and one of them suggests, let's go to the convenience store and get Gatorade and Powerade and things of that nature, for during the game or after the game, whatever the case may be. So in the dream, we go to the convenience store, and from there we walk to the field, which is kind of a far walk, but in the dream, you know how it is. Mind you, by the time we're done at the convenience store, it's we know we're late, right? We know that we're running late. And yet we're still just walking. And it's one of those dreams where the walking and the pace is so slow. So, in the dream, I remember thinking oh my gosh, I can't believe we're going to be late. And that was getting me so nervous. Anyway, lo and behold, in the dream we finally make it, and the game is already started. And obviously, saying it to you, listening, it's probably like, well, okay, it's not that bad of a dream. But in the dream, I was panicking. It was like, I can't believe we're going to miss this game. I can't believe we let our team down. The whole thing. So fast forwarding to last night's dream, it was sort of that same concept. It's like, I'm waking up, I'm late, I'm going to be late. So I get ready. This is now transitioning again into my most recent dream. And I get dressed, and somehow I know where the dinner is. But here's what's really strange about it. As I kind of walk outside, I open the door to my parents' home's front door, and I almost like walk down the street. But in the dream, it's like I almost walk back to my parents' house, and the dinner is at my parents' house. Now, when I woke up, obviously, I thought that was such a strange detail in the dream. But again, while you're dreaming, you don't notice how strange things are. So it was almost like, oh, okay, I made it. By the time I made it, it was already dark, and I remember the door being open, and I walk in, and it's like a Thanksgiving thing. And what was strange, well, it's all strange, I guess, but, it's a dream, so what else? So then I walk in, and I had some family members there, but like my parents weren't there, my sisters weren't there, or whatever. And it was just kind of like normal. It's like, oh yeah, of course. Like, this is exactly who I should be spending my Thanksgiving with. Almost as if like, it's very typical for, you to be spending it separate from your family, like your immediate family, that is. And then frankly, at that point, I don't remember anything else. I think I kind of woke up right after. But obviously the details of like being late stuck out to me, and obviously the detail of walking somewhere only to return to my parents' home was another strange detail. This is not, if you've noticed, if you've heard other episodes, I've discussed like meals, like dining together with other people as like a recurring sort of like place, like going to dinner with people that I don't know, or I know that they don't know each other, and it's kind of a weird combination of the two. And like that Thanksgiving theme also has been a recurring thing in my life. The only other recurring dream, well, I'm trying to think now. I don't know if this was a recurring dream or if it was just a really vivid dream that really stuck out to me. And honestly, I'm not even sure if I've said this dream before, but this is the dream that really, that for some reason I remember the most out of any. And the thing that really stuck out to me about this dream, number one, I had it as a child, and again, I remember it extremely vividly. But also I remember thinking it felt very real, it could have obviously just been like, childhood, that like, when you're younger, you experience things a bit more harshly than maybe you would as you get older, of course. But I remember in that dream, I wake up, obviously I'm in my room, again, it's in my parents' house, I'm a kid, probably no more, I must be no older than like 6 or 7 years old. And I get out of bed, and my parents' house, there's a set of glass sliding doors. So I go over to the glass sliding doors, and I look outside, and I notice outside, they used to have a jacuzzi outside. But I noticed kind of like past the jacuzzi. I noticed past the jacuzzi, there is like a almost like a strange plant that's kind of like if you know Mario, like Super Mario World, right? Like the plant where the whatever it's called, the like the red vine thing that chomps at you. They're like dogs in the context of Mario Kart and Super Mario. So it's kind of there, and so I decide to open the door and I go outside. And then from a distance, I can see it kind of like opening up. I think I've said this dream before, but I mean, this could be your first time listening, and I think it's an interesting dream, of course. So it kind of like starts to open up, and then I get very nervous. And so it's very silly to think about, but my reaction to what I'm seeing in front of me is to pretend that I'm asleep. So that whatever comes out of there, basically just says, well, the kid's asleep, I can't do anything to him. So basically I lay down on the side and I basically put my head like on the jacuzzi, very uncomfortable position in the real world, I'm sure. And I kind of keep one eye half open. And so from the plant, it's Poison Ivy, like the character from Batman. Poison Ivy, right? Ivy, isn't that what you call her? The plant lady from Batman, okay? She makes an appearance. And she's walking, and she's not even like menacing per se. She's not, it's actually not even that creepy. It was obviously just very startling in the context of my dream. And I remember kind of just keeping my eye on there, and then I see her kind of walking towards me a little bit, but she doesn't get that close, and then she kind of just like walks away, and then she just kind of like walks away somewhere else. So obviously like the plant from which she sprouted from remains there, so I kind of go and I inspect it a little bit, and then simply I go back inside, lock the sliding door, close the blinds. I think that was it. I think she was in the house, but it wasn't, again, it was not villainous. It wasn't with malice, Legitimately, nothing happens in the rest of the dream, as I'm remembering it right now. But again, that dream, which again, I'm sorry, maybe you've heard this, because I think I have spoken about this dream, because it's one of the dreams that just really sticks out to me like none other. Another one I remember very vividly was, I must have been like, same thing, 8 years old, 9, 10, kind of like in that range, right? Like there's no way I was older than that, right? And I don't remember how the dream starts, but at some point in the dream, I kind of look around and I know I'm dreaming. I think this is the only time this has ever happened to me. So I'm completely aware that I'm in a dream. And so I look to my left, I look to my right, and again, I'm conscious in the dream. I mean, I remember being conscious. And then I say to myself, hey, this is my dream. I can do whatever I want. I literally snap my finger like I'm Thanos, in the Avengers. And I change the scenery to like a beach. And I do it again. And then I was on planet, what's it called? Planet Kai. God, my Dragon Ball references are bad. Like King Kai's planet from Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. So I remember being on that planet. At this point, obviously, I was a huge Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z fan. And I remember thinking, this is my dream. And for the rest of my dream until I wake up, I'm going to be a Saiyan. So I start floating. I remember like training. I remember I went to like I was sparring with someone, not like a recognizable character from Dragon Ball. But I was like sparring and I was super fast. I was leveling up. I probably did a Kamehameha. But again, all this was very purposeful, at least in my dream, and who knows, that could have just been the flow of the dream no matter what. Maybe I recall it as being that way, but for me, that part about, like snapping my finger and being like, hey, this is my dream, I'm taking over now. Because I think prior to doing that, I'm pretty sure I was having a nightmare. So that's what really sticks out to me is I'm almost positive that I was actually, like getting scared and having a nightmare in the middle of my dream. And at some point in that nightmare is when I look around, I'm like, hold on a second, like, this is my dream, I can do whatever I want. Like, why am I having a nightmare? And, snapping of the finger. I remember, again, going to the beach. And then the second time it was, again, I was on King Kai's planet. But that's part of the beauty of the imagination, right? Of your youth when you're a kid. Now my dreams are going to Thanksgiving dinners and going to a skate mall where it's like an abandoned mall. It's like a mega mall. It's only dedicated to skating, and I don't know. I've said a bunch of dreams already that you guys probably remember my dreams better than I do at this point. But yeah, right now I'm looking at the time. Believe it or not, I'm recording this right before having to go to the office. So I really should not delay any further. I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of, ASMR Weekend Ramble. Questions, comments, concerns can always be directed to me at hello@sleepandrelaxasmr.com. That's all for this episode. Thanks as always for listening, and take care.